Hello and welcome to episode 41. We are playing with ChessUp and I'm expecting black pieces today. However, this is not up to us to decide. And we are playing whites again, and now that this season is concluded with regards to Botvinnik and Vienna. Vienna dominated Botvinnik system. We are going to go back to explore the Alex Banzias opening repertoire with the Jobava London. I need to be honest and just confess that I don't know necessarily how to play this opening. However, I believe that the main recommendation is to wait and see if black is going to play bishop f5 or if he's going to decide to look the center with the pawn to e6. Black is aware of the knight b5 threat, so for example knight c6 would be a big blunder if instead of a6. And I, on the other hand, I'm unaware of many of the options that we may have, as I'm simply just exploring and experimenting with this opening. So black is waiting and playing a waiting game. And they might want to be playing move like knight b4 themselves and then bishop f5. So if I play bishop d3 and they play knight to b4, then after bishop e2, they can play bishop f5. I would have to be forced to play rook c1. And seems to be like a bit complicated, but we can always kick the knight away with move a3. But then we will not be allowed to castle long, so that's something that would be sad. So the question is if I really want to allow all this sequence, if there's any point in allowing that sequence. As we will then have to decide to castle short. But I feel it could actually be good for us because we will develop rook on c1, bishop on e2, they will develop only bishop on f5. And after a3, knight c6, we have one other useful move here. So we would win some tempos by just allowing that. So we are going to play bishop d3. We are playing against FT Ballist 24. This probably means footballist. And now I believe black wants to play knight to h5 and win our bishop on f4. So move like h3 seems to be quite natural, just to avoid... Oh, actually I didn't need to play it because I have queen h5. But then again, we want to be playing move like knight f3 or knight d2. So once we play that move, then knight h5 would be a possibility. So we are going to go into the line that we have already calculated, allowing bishop f5. protecting c2 with rook c1. So we basically wanted all this. The question is, what am I going to do with the knight on c3? What's going to be their purpose? Black might want to try and strike with c5, but I'm not sure that's recommendable. It's definitely playable. It's definitely playable. But c5, d takes c5, e6, a3, and b4. We would be able to probably win that pawn. So black plays e6, which makes sense. We are going to hit the knight. Knight to c6. And I'm still not sure we got any advantage here in this position. There is this saying that we should try and do the pawn storm. That's what I hear always with Alex Banza's videos. But black chose a slightly different development, and it doesn't seem to make much sense for me to try and hit the bishop with the f3, especially now when we are not allowed to castle anymore. I would much feel that we will need to sort out this bishop here, this knight here. So then we can push the c4 ourselves. Or we can actually offer the bishop d3. Yeah, the bishop d3 actually looks okay. To try and add some more pressure to the center. I'll be honest, I'm really exploring this opening, so I have no idea what I should be striving for in this position. We can potentially allow some craziness. So we will go just with a simple development to begin with. We can no longer prevent this bishop from being traded. But it also doesn't feel right to give the e4 square to our opponent. Knight e4 feels very unnatural, because I literally want to jump this knight. And it basically allowed us to sort the bad knight that we had on c3. Now we can push the c4 when need be. Pawn on e4 is probably okay. But then again, we can put lots of pressure against that pawn. And I believe we don't want to return the favor with knight e5. But then again, we can always recapture with the bishop. But this pawn will be rather weak pawn. And if we can win the pawn, that will be just brilliant for us. So bishop d6 makes sense. If I now capture on d6, I will be getting that bishop into trouble. In some cases, I might want to be playing still the c4 move. What would be the best way to trade our bishop? We can allow the e takes f4. So we will allow this pawn structure with e takes f4, as we will be able to put even more pressure on the e4 pawn. But before we can allow this e takes f4 move, we need to support this d4 pawn. So we will play c3 and see what black is going to do here. Black is accepting the challenge, so we are taking back. So now we have transformed the pawn structure slightly. Black castling. Now castling short could be a problem here if queen h4 is being played. But if castling queen h4, we have moved bishop g4. Maybe we can play move bishop g4 straight away. So let's have a look. Castling, queen h4, bishop g4. Castling appears to be a problem here. As we won't be able to protect the pawn on f4. So what we can try and do is to play knight to c4 first. So after queen h4 we will have the queen d2 move, and if bishop h3, g takes h3, queen h3, we will have queen to e3 as a response. So we are going to play knight to c4 first. The knight could potentially go to e5. I may have missed that black could have potentially have queen d5, but queen d5 doesn't seem to be a problem here. Black would want to play knight to d5. So we have slight problems here in this position. Slight problems. What we can do actually is to castle artificially. Castle artificially with king f1 and king g2. Black might also want to try and play c5. So I'm still not sure what to do. Castle, knight d5, queen d2, queen h4. Doesn't look very inspiring for us. Castling looks like an issue. If we allow knight d5, we can allow that. But overall, I'm having issue with the me castling. Castle, knight d5, g3, and sometimes they will have also push on e3. So the bishop on f5 is a bit annoying. Let me just say that much. And if I play knight e3, then knight d5 is also annoying. So I think I'll play queen d2 first. Queen d2 as a first option. b5 makes sense, makes lots of sense. Because if I play knight e5, after f6 I will have to play knight g4 and still land on here. So one of my main ideas will be to play knight to e3 here. Knight d5 happens, which is something that I would expect. And we will play g3, just to protect the pawn on f4. Knight takes e3, queen takes e3. That's something that I would prefer, because most of the pawns are on the light squares, and we have a light square bishop. We still cannot castle, but we might transfer the bishop from f1. Oh, now we can castle. Black wants to play f5 probably to protect this pawn, so we will definitely let them to protect the pawn, because that will only improve our pawn structure. f5. Brilliant move. Now this totally gets this bishop out of the game. And not only that, we can still play a move like f3, get rid of our double pawn. And potentially ruin their pawn structure further. So I would play f3 here. It's definitely a move worth playing. It looks like we can also win. We either will win the pawn on e6, or we will have them have like really two weak pawns that will be restricting this bishop. So either way I look at it, it looks good for us. So queen d5 is a move that I would expect to be played as well here. But again, that's something that just looks good for us. If queen e4, we can play queen e4 ourselves, and then I don't want the end game, not the pawn end game yet. What we can do here is to try and hit the queen with the move c4. And even though I don't see the implications of this, I will definitely do this move. We have 2 minutes left, and I haven't got so much time to calculate, but it feels like it should be winning a pawn. It helps us to activate the bishop as well. Queen to d6. And now it definitely looks like we want to make fun of their pawns. Taking here is fine. So the structure-wise, we look much better here than opponent. We might need to still look for the better moves though. One of the moves that I like is queen to b3, hitting that pawn on e6 a little more. Pawn to c6 is an interesting move, but we'll play b4. Just fixating as many pawns on the darks, on the light squares as possible. It doesn't look like a position that's easily winnable. Looks quite the opposite. Rook d8, counter-attacking, it's reasonable. So I think the best we can do here is to capture. But what I have missed is that they would be able to play c5 here. So that's something I should have considered. Because this is now not so good for us. Not so good. Yeah, I fell for like a little tactic there. And that is no good at all. That is not good at all. But how about we pretend everything is fine and we can try and win with the 3 pawns that would be marching forward? How would that look? minutes. I have 37 seconds, and this is going to be crazy. But since this bishop is not playing, thanks to some of those pawns, then we are definitely going to try and see if this is something we can potentially win. Oh my god, I just dropped that pawn. Okay, that happens. Mistakes happen. So we're going to embark again on a mission to try and get those pawns rolling. So this is really, really bad game on our part. Missing that tactic with the c5 was really, really weak. So let's go forward. Let's go ahead. Queen d3, reasonable move. We don't want to trade a queen, that's for sure. But there isn't much we can actually do to prevent trade of the queen. So we are going to try and activate the king if possible. And good luck to us with 30 seconds remaining. Queen takes, king takes. So as desperate as this is, it cannot be any more desperate than this. Okay, absolutely makes sense. If we play b6, rook d3, king e2, rook b3, b6, rook d3, king e2, rook takes a3, b7. And black won on time. I made a total mistake, not forget the time. So I was thinking this line, and now if black takes here, with this b7 would be already winning. This is unfortunate. And if they play rook b3, then we might have already a good try might be rook c8, king here, rook c7, king has to go to f6, and we can play b7 here. And this could be difficult for black, as we might start marching the pawn a4, but they might actually have a move e3. And we would have to play king to f3. So here they would be in time. So I could also play rook c6 here. And again, the rook a3 is not possible for b7. But black might try to play move e3. No, I'm not sure. Well, anyway, we lost on time. That happens. A little bit of setback, experimenting with a new opening. And there was like lots of things that I didn't understand how certain pieces should play in the game. So that's what cost us lots of time in the opening, and eventually cost us the game. But that will not stop me from trying and trying and trying again. So we will be again looking at this opening in the future in the Jobava London, but I need to obviously, maybe look a little bit more at the certain options that black may have and how to react to those and what to do. I believe in particular that this plan with the e takes f4 wasn't as smart as I thought, because then I realized I need to play g3 at some point and I cannot allow to castle, and with queen h4. So it was way too complicated and not as simple as when we play Botvinnik or the Vienna. Those systems seems to be more fluid at the moment, but it might be because I don't understand the positions, but it also might be because it's just superior. But definitely my understanding in Jobava isn't so good. So anyway, take care for now, and I'll see you in the next game.